Hello. Tonight we honor the life of Rikkey Outumuro, known to many in the community as Tru Starlet. She was a fixture in the Olympia community as well as Lewis County, where she lived in Centralia, Washington. She was the victim of a brutal homicide by her boyfriend um, and has fortunately died at the age of 39. Um, Later in the show, we'll share exclusive clips from a vigil held in her honor at Sylvester Park in Olympia on Sunday, as well as some photos that I took that I've shared on social media. But first, um, when I did live stream that event. So if you want to look at that, you want to watch the whole thing in its entirety, check out my YouTube, check out my um, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook accounts to watch that. But first, I have a very long clip that I wanted to show from the post-election panel. At the end of the show, I invited Oliver Webb to come on and talk about the latest murder, the second transgender individual to trans or non-binary individual to die here in Washington State by violent means. Um, and so we basically talk about the details of that, about Rikkey Outumuro, her life, celebrate the details of her contributions to the community. And we did touch a little bit on the first murder of a trans or non-binary individual here in Washington State, which was Zoe. And so at the end, I'll give you a little wrap up of what's happening in both of those legal cases against the perpetrators of those crimes. So let me go ahead and roll that long clip, and then we'll be back to watch those exclusive clips as well as pictures. And at the end, I'll tell you what's going on, as well as do a couple announcements. I want to talk about, unfortunately, another trans murder that happened in our state, unfortunately. And this is actually the fifth murder in the Pacific Northwest of trans and non-binary individuals. Rikkey Outumuro, also known as Tru Starlet, is just a big personality in Olympia and in Lewis County. She was the um, Miss Gay Lewis County in 2008 and was also the reigning Miss Gay Olympia. She is definitely going to be missed. She was found the victim of brutal homicide in her home in Centralia, Washington. She was 39 years old. Her boyfriend, Christopher Allen Gaudreau, 28, has been charged with murder and is being held at the Lewis County Jail without bail. I want to bring in Oliver Webb, the board chair of Diversity Alliance of Puget Sound, to the show tonight because he has more information and to discuss the relevance and the significance of her death. Oliver, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me back. Can you hear me tonight?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
And you can see me. I'm not a weird buffering circle.
Tech issues are the bane of my existence ever
It's
since I
true.
started Renee Reports.
It wouldn't be a live stream if we didn't have one.
That is true.
Yeah.
So can you tell us more about the situation and how it fits in with the picture, both locally and across the nation?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I am back very shortly after I was here recently talking about Zoe Martinez, and I have some stats for you this time. Like you said, this is the fifth murder in the Pacific Northwest, which is not something we normally have happen. So I looked at the stats for the past 4 years. In 2018, we had one death in Oregon. In 2019, we had an Oregon and a Washington. In last year, we had Summer Taylor during the protests. They were killed, and Diaz Love was injured, severely injured, in a horrific. I guess they were hit on, I believe it was I-5. And then this year we've had 1 in Idaho, 2 in Oregon, and then now 2 in Washington. And so both Zoe and Rikkey, are very close together. And so Washington's been hit very, very quickly by these 2 deaths. Both were arrested. But you know what, when it comes down to it, we're continually losing members of our community, whether they're in the Pacific Northwest, whether they're somewhere else in the US, where they're somewhere else in the world. That really doesn't matter. This is unacceptable. So we aren't part of the census. Most people know this. But the last time there was any sort of numbers done about out trans people, and again, we know that not everybody is out, and that's absolutely valid. Either they're not out because of safety, or they're not out because of family, or they're just not, ready to be out. In 2016, there was a number about 1.3 million trans or gender diverse individuals, and we know that's probably a likely bigger number now, because that was a different time in 2016. So that makes for about 1 in every 28,600 people is trans or gender diverse was murdered, if you take the 45 from that, which looks like a much bigger number when you break it down, right? So you may think 45 isn't a very big number. No, if you take that with the number of out people, we're losing 1 in every 28,000 people. So if you take that down again, 28,600 is almost identical to the number of the population of Maple Valley. Maple Valley right now sits at 28,013, which is where Zoe was from. It's also close to the number of SeaTac, which is a little higher than 28,600. So it's an entire city. So we're pulling from a city. So it's one person, we're losing people from a city, from one of these tiny cities. So it is a big number. It's a huge number to our community. And again, when we talk about these numbers, 45 are just the people that were named, that these families, these friends, these communities fought to make sure were buried under their names. These are the people that we know were trans or non-binary, that we know their names. These are the people that were found, that were gendered correctly at the time of their death. There are likely hundreds, if not thousands more. So Rikkey was found. It's a horrific, horrific death. It was her partner. We believe that they had broken up. It is a horrific situation. She had a son. The son was there. I'm not going to go into details. It is unfortunately all over the news as to what happened. It is a very small town. It's a very small county. This woman was an activist, was very involved in our community. Like you said, she is, was Miss Gay Lewis County, Miss Gay Olympia. She was known in our community. And this has hurt the community greatly. They knew this guy. They knew her family. And we're continuing to lose these people. And so I looked at some more stats. So this year alone, we've had at least 250 anti-LGBTQ bills this year. And within that, the trans bills alone, there are 60 that remove kids from sports, 35 that remove gender affirming care, 43 that allow your religion to take away services from us, and 15 that prohibit us from using the bathroom or locker room that identify with our gender. And that is astonishing, the amount of numbers that come out of that. And this is not under the Trump administration. Under the Trump administration, there were hundreds. From day one, Trump started making these bills and putting these bills into action. So it is a direct correlation of the hate that was seeded under that administration that has continued on under this administration because it was allowed to fester for years and years and years. And it has been allowed to continue. We are not seen as human beings. We do not have rights. And when we are given rights, individual states take it upon themselves to take those away. They take them away from our kids. They take them away from the adults. And they lash out on us until they dehumanize us. And in turn, the people around us that have that deep-seated hatred take it out on us, and we lose more and more people. In 2016, there was a documentary that came out of Washington because there were a ton of bills that were again passed in Washington, like some, or were trying to be passed. None of them were passed. A bunch of bathroom bills. That was the year where all those bathroom bills came out originally. In Washington, in our state, they pushed. There were a bunch of families and stuff that pushed and went to the state to fight against them. And it was called The Most Dangerous Year. And I think we lost 23 people that year. We are at 45 already. Every single year since The Most Dangerous Year, it has continued to grow and grow and grow. We do not ever have less than the year before us. We are now the worst year for LGBTQ people. It has been officially deemed that by the HRC. We are under attack. We are continually under attack. It is unacceptable what is happening to us. It is direct correlation. The attacks that happen to us end in violence against us, end in dead bodies. We are burying our own because of what this country has done to us, and it is unacceptable.
Agreed. I looked into this story because I was asked to write an article for the Seattle Gay News. I read through, the court filings, and I spoke with family and friends, and all of them are devastated. Obviously, she was a light in their life. She was a significant member of the community in Centralia and Olympia. I think about Zoe Martinez, and she was 20 years old, just how young she was when she died. In this case, the victim was 39. Both were Latina, so there was a lot of similarities in that regard. Although, and then both, this is a gory detail, were shot 5 times. Now, this is just 2 of 5 people that had died here in the Pacific Northwest. And I wanted to take a minute to recognize the other individuals we haven't mentioned. I know you spoke about the numbers, but we lost Ollie Taylor of Oregon, 17 years old, number 28 as far as the number of trans and non-binary murders in the nation. Jesse Hart of Oregon was 42 years old. They were number 43. And of course, in Idaho, Joe Aker, who's 26 years old. They were 44. People who want to read about this can read about it in the Seattle Gay News. I'll have an article out there at sgn.org and in the pages of the Seattle Gay News. Let's see. Looks like Borfos found some resources. So definitely check that out. As you mentioned, basically just the Pacific Northwest represents 11.1% of the total murders of transgender and non-binary individuals that we know of. As you mentioned,
Washington. We're 11.11 for Washington alone.
Oh my.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know as a transgender person, and I'm sure you know as well, there's a lot of people who had been, taught, that there is male and female. They were not, given the gift of understanding the spectrum that is gender. and respecting people who fall somewhere else on the spectrum. And, to have another death of someone here in our state, you know, this was very difficult for me, to even comprehend, you know. Um, I just, I shed a good tear, especially as I interviewed individuals that knew, um, Outumuro and knew uh, Tru Starlet. I tried my best to remain professional, but we had a lot of good cries together. And I really just don't want to cry anymore this year. We have, basically a month, almost 2 months left in this year. And it pains me, to think that anyone else, not only here in Seattle or Washington or in the Pacific Northwest, but anyone else in this country will die through violent means, in part, perhaps because they were, transgender or non-binary. I'm going to hand it over to you for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrific. And I mean, for us to have one person per year basically is outrageous, and to have two back to back is unfathomable. So Zoe's murder's trial starts next month. And we're still going through that, and to have another murder and to have to go through that trial, we have not healed from the last wounds, and these families and this community is not ready for another one. This country is not ready to move forward and continue this community is not ready for this, to continue these numbers, to continue these climbs. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Everybody is hurting. I was talking to someone today, and I was like, we're all in a pandemic. People have, housing instability, food instability, employment instability. There's mental health crises happening. Suicidality is happening. And on top of that, those of us who are in these oppressed groups are having to deal with this, and it's compounded. And we are going through, Trans Awareness Month, and it is compounded with TDOR, and we are having to mourn our lost. And it's unfathomable what's happening. There's so much. And how do we reconcile that? I don't have answers as someone who leads people, who runs a board and serves the community. When people ask how to navigate this, it's very difficult to give support, because I also need support at times, right? Like, I'm going to be in that courtroom. I'm going to have to see things that are horrific to see. And, it's hard to talk about these things. I did not expect to be back here having this conversation. Weeks, like, has it even been weeks? I do not. It's been like a week. Like, it's been like a week since we had this last conversation. Like, when do we have the next conversation? Can we stop having these conversations? Can they stop killing us? This is ridiculous.
And will our politicians please stop using us as a political, football, to gain points among their supporters? We are real people. We have real lives,
And you were just talking, the two were talking about, so Seattle's turning red. It looks like an election, and I was checking the other cities. It looks like there's a large chunk of us turning red, and that's horrifying. That's absolutely horrifying. And I wonder, how much of that has to do with the news in the nation that skewed what happened over the pandemic, what happened over the protests, the framing that went around claiming what was going on here, right? Like they made us an anarchist jurisdiction. They claimed all this stuff that was happening in Seattle. Like, I'm sorry, I was there. This is not what was happening. And we talk about Nikita Oliver, who is an amazing human being and will absolutely be doing mutual aid forever. That is Nikita Oliver. And so if Nikita loses, that is a huge loss for Seattle. That's so disappointing. And so for any of this to turn red is such a huge loss, right? Like, and I wonder how much of that has to do with the framing that happened around this country. Trump literally spent that small portion of the re-election to cry about Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's such a sad situation that that's what you're going to spend your time on, to put all of us in danger, because it's supposed to be a safe city. It's supposed to be queer friendly.
We are running low on time. I wanted to mention that Christopher Allen Gadru, 28, he will have an arraignment tomorrow, the 4th, in Lewis County Superior Court, in case anyone is interested. Now, I know we're about to go over time, but I did want to give you an opportunity because hopefully you will not be back.
Please, no. I mean, for something else, we can
I
have
think-
some
right,
sort of
right.
great conversation that has nothing to
Right.
do with this terrible stuff.
Hopefully it won't be anytime soon. Hopefully something positive. But I want to give an opportunity to plug the Transgender Day of Remembrance because it has special significance this year here in Washington State.
It does. So Trans Day of Remembrance is Saturday, November 20th. We are doing a dual Tacoma, Seattle. DAPS, so Diversity Alliance of the Puget Sound, founded TDR Tacoma, I don't know, 2008-ish. Christine Gregoire, who you mentioned earlier, made TDR an official day for Washington State back then. And so we're doing Tacoma at the Washington State Historical Society because it's a large building and we can safely secure it. And then from 6 to 8 p.m. And then Seattle will be doing it at a church. I believe it's a utilitarian church. That is, I will be announcing exactly where. That is ran by Astro Pittman, who is one of our board members as well. They founded it a few years ago and has always been one of the organizers and will continue doing that. They just happen to be under the DAPS umbrella these days. And we will be live streaming and make it sort of a hybrid situation. And then several cities are going to raise the pride flag to half-mast for us in honor of TDR, which is a big deal. We don't believe that any government buildings in Washington State have ever done that at half-mast. And then several cities are going to be proclaiming TDR an official day and Trans Awareness Week. So we will be putting out that information on our socials when we get those days and those times for the proclamations and the flag raises. So yeah, so look out for that information. There are also several other TDRs happening around the state if you can't make it to either Tacoma or Seattle.
And what was the website again?
Find those. www.diversityallianceofthepugetsound.org. I was like, I have no idea right now. And we're on most or all social media under Diversity Alliance of the Puget Sound.
Absolutely. And again, Trans Day of Remembrance is November 20th this year.
And I just want to start by thanking people who traveled here from Grays Harbor County, from Lewis County, and from Thurston County. And to ask all of us to just take a moment, realize that we are community. We live in different places, but tragedies like this bring us together. I think that's really an important thing because I think many of us feel alone. It brings up a lot of tragedy that we've experienced of LGBTQ folks being beaten, harassed, murdered. Rikkey apparently is the second transgender woman to be murdered in Washington State. I believe the fourth in the Pacific Northwest. Fifth, thank you. I'm bad with numbers sometimes. So I just wanted to give both a personal and also a pride perspective on how fabulous Rikkey was. Some of you who were at the Centralia gathering the other night, which was absolutely beautiful, and I want to thank you so much for inviting me down. I wasn't sure what to expect, but because sometimes people that live in big cities like Olympia are fearful of smaller towns like Centralia, but it was the most loving, affirming gathering of people standing shoulder to shoulder in a COVID-safe way, but shoulder to shoulder in support of their LGBTQ community. So I met Rikkey when she was a spunky little 8-year-old. She was best buddies with the daughter of my then girlfriend, Lisa Blazer. Lisa lived on the west side, and whenever I would spend the weekends with Lisa, the two girls would go scampering off to the West Side Food Co-op where there was a free box, and they'd be pulling clothes out. And I once followed them. I said, "What the heck are you kids doing?" And Rikkey turned to me just beaming with that megawatt smile that she had even at age 8 and said, "We're playing dress up drag queen. We're going to do a show. Do you want to be in it?" And they would put on shows for people that were pulling into the parking lot who were like, they were good people, but they were like, "What the heck is going on here?" Okay, kids do drag shows at the Olympia Food Co-op. That's awesome. And she, even at age 8, was making the world safer for young people. No matter how you identify, whatever you think your sexual orientation is, one of the gifts our transgender sisters and brothers and the non-gendered version of that, our transgendered family give to us is that you can be who you are. Bring it all on and be yourself authentically. That's an incredible gift. And it just beamed out of her smile like the sun back when she was 8. She was an amazing baby trans queen to be. I later got to know Rikkey a little bit more when I was working on Pride. We always had this parade that had a lot of moving parts. We had shows, we had fundraising events. And I remembered one of the first times I saw Rikkey perform was right across the street here at the old Urban Onion. And I remember thinking, wow, this is one gutsy gal. Because when you come from Lewis County, it can be a little bit scary. Because she said both her name, her performing name, which was Tru Starlet, as well as her given name, Rikkey Outumuro. And then after her performance, I saw her family just flocked around her, just like as if she was Cher, or just like a mega star, like Lady Gaga. And I thought, she is just making this real. She's bringing it home. She's going to be herself and make the world that much safer for everyone else. She could also be a little bit of a handful. I think anybody that knows Rikkey knows that. Once she bought this kind of something she called me about, saying, "I got this really awesome 3-wheeler bike, and me and Brian want to be in the parade. But we need a little bit of help from you, Anna. You know how to fix things, right? You're a lesbian." And I said, "Sure." And I came over to her house, and I was expecting to see like one of those fancy delivery bikes that they have like in New York or Chicago. And I saw this rusting Hulk that the wheels didn't turn, the pedals didn't turn. And I thought, the parade's in 3 days. What are we going to do? And I called in every favor I had with every bicycle mechanic, and I got it fixed and moving. I spray painted most of it gold, and then she had made a leather print pillow for it, and she and Brian wheeled their way all the way down the parade route, and it just was incredible. And she brought that kind of like, I'm going to do it. I don't care how crazy it is. I don't care if the wheels are rusted, frozen shut. I'm just going to make it happen. Another short story about her bravery. She was the very first Miss Gay Lewis County, which to people like me, and a lot of folks consider me to be pretty fearless. I was one of the first really out people in Thurston County up here in Olympia. One of the first people to have my face in the Olympian, which always felt like, oh my God, I have a wanted poster now. But she was Miss Gay Lewis County in 2008. And that might not seem that long ago to people in a larger community like Olympia. But if you lived down there, you knew that was like risking your life. But that was the kind of person that she was. She was a performer. She was a friend. She was a warrior. She wanted this place to be safer for all kinds of folks, however they identified, whatever their sexual orientation. And she wanted to make sure that we all looked fabulous doing it. She was one of the many people who used to say, Anna, you got to do something with my hair. You got to do something with that hair. And it's like, what? And it's like, well, I'm a lesbian. We don't do stuff with our hair. What are you talking about? But I think that's another thing that binds a lot of people. That she used to do your hair, sometimes with, real pain in her hands because she had arthritis. But she was an amazing, amazing young woman whose life was cut short far too soon. I really hope that the criminal justice system does what it ought to do. Our community has not always had good success with that. So we're asking people's support for the family because not only did they lose a family member, they have to find a way to bury Rikkey, and that costs a lot. We have a GoFundMe link on our Facebook page, and we would really appreciate any donation, large or small. So again, I just want to close by saying, just remember the folks that are around here. It might not be 5,000 people. It might not be the 200 that they gathered in Centralia. So I just want to note that Centralia beat out Olympia. But these are the people who will support you. They will defend you. They will come by your side. They will make sure that you are supported. Because as we go forward, there will be times when we don't feel that. So thank you very much for coming. And I would like to introduce Rikkey's brother, Joe Outumuro.
Thanks, Hannah. I'm not always the best public speaker, but I just wanted to start by thanking everybody for coming out here and supporting Rikkey. And, I guess you guys can probably imagine the colorful childhood I had. And playing Barbies and having her dress me up, sometimes against my will. But my sister was an amazing person. She was a trailblazer. She set an example for a lot of people who may have been struggling about coming out and being exactly who they are inside. And I just always looked up to my sister because she was fierce, she was courageous, and I'm never going to be the same after this. And I just want to thank you guys for coming. So thank you.
Thank you.
Rikkey's mom, who I just have to say how amazing it was to meet her way back when Rikkey was 8, because as somebody that loved children, I never had any biological kids, but I helped her raise dozens. And there were people who thought I was doing it to sexually prey on little girls or, children of all gender identities. And Hope walked up to me, didn't know her at all, and said, "Thank you so much, both you and Lisa, for being role models for my Rikkey. I want Rikkey to know that she can grow up and find love and find happiness and get a job, just like you." So here's Hope.
Hi, as she said, I'm Rikkey's mom, and I just wanted to step up and say a few words, even though I'm really struggling today. Rikkey was my firstborn. I was 15, and it was the most wonderful, beautiful gift ever. And I always we would joke around because I was a mother at 15 and a half, and we kind of grew up together, we learned together, we grew up together, as you can imagine, having a child back then, and that that lived her life as a female. There was never any other thing with Rikkey. It came from childhood. It was there. We went to counseling. We tried to figure out this was Rikkey. And Rikkey was just always Rikkey. There was no male, no female. She was beautiful Rikkey. And she's touched many, many hearts, many, many souls. Today, she would be the person that I would go to, that I would meet. And she's not there, but she is still with me. I know that, but it's just going to be really difficult going forward. But she did touch a lot of people. I've received many, many emails and stories and all the lives she touched, and I'm so very proud of her. And I've always been very proud of her. And we've lost a wonderful person for our community, for our family. And I just want to say she really loved her Pride family and her Pride friends. They have always been so supportive, as they are being right now. And so as our family, we just want to say thank you to everybody. And there will be funeral information coming forth. We're trying to do everything we can as best as we can, as quickly as we can, but it's been really hard. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody out there, everybody out here, and yeah, thank you so much.
And Rikkey was one of my students. And I was an advisor to the Gay Straight Alliance at the college for many years. And not just as a student, but as a community member, she took part in that group. And she did things that, to this day, I'm just stunned by. One, there was never a Miss Lewis County before Rikkey. She made it up. And I wasn't with GSA then, it was a year before, but she dressed up, and so did, I don't know if Amarissa was with GSA then, dressed up, and they all paraded downtown in the middle of the day in Centralia. And my colleagues who were advising the group were scared to death. One was a lesbian, and one was a Black woman. And they said, we're afraid someone will shoot us, you know? But the dean of students said, you get out there with those students. You know, there are students, you have to be there. And they did. And it was startling. The other thing she did is she came to the group later on and said the police were harassing me. And you need to help me. And I didn't know how to help. And I was sitting in my office, and another student came to my door who was a local student, said the police are harassing me too. They stop me all the time. And so we decided as GSA to pull together a panel of people that were at the college, Black students, Hispanic students, gay students, trans students, people on the staff who were Koreans, and invite the police to hear our stories. And they came. I was stunned. I have to say the police have changed since then. I mean, they brought pizzas to the Black Lives Matter protest down there last year and have gone through diversity training, and Centralia now has a rainbow program on all the storefronts. You can go there for safety. But Rikkey started it. And I learned more that day than I learned my whole life when that panel happened. And so did other people. I mean, I learned things about people I'd known for years, what they had been through. So she did all that, and we should all be more like her. Thank you.
Thank you. Alliance, which is a a domestic violence center that is based in Lewis County. I'd like to invite everybody to come and take one of these little cups, and you'll have information about Hope Alliance. You'll also have one of these fabulous multicolor LED lights that you can click on and put above your kitchen sink when you're doing your dishes to remember Rickey by. But it is so amazing that there is an organization that responds to a domestic violence murder of a transgender woman in our state. And they responded immediately without hesitation. Probably a dozen of them showed up at the arraignment. They put on the most amazing event in a beautiful little park in downtown Centralia a couple nights ago. And they have pledged to be with Hope and Joe every step of the way, to make sure that justice for Rickey is found, and not to treat her like a less than human being as the LGBTQ community is so used to. But if you are interested in taking one of these, if you're interested in volunteering or supporting, especially for those of you from Lewis County, these folks rock. And they will make sure that their services are available to people without discrimination on the basis of their gender identity or their sexual orientation. So, last call, I don't know if anybody's gotten a last burst of courage. It's really not hard. People don't believe this, but I was terribly shy as a kid and as a young adult. And I just pushed myself in towards the mic.
3. We love you, Rickey!
Because you're so fat.
I'm so sorry, I'm muted. Thank you, Borfos. Can you hear me now? Oh, great. So what I was saying earlier is please, take a moment to light a candle for Rikkey Outumuro and her family and for the life that was lost in the community that has to move on without her. And then I was going to give a couple updates on the status of the cases that are currently winding their way through the courts. Um, Now, with the Rikkey Outumuro's case, the accused killer, Christopher Allen Gaudreau, continues to be held at the Lewis County Jail without bail. Gaudreau's attorney, Chris Baum, has requested a competency evaluation to determine whether he's mentally capable of standing trial. Judge J. Andrew Toneby has granted Baum's request for a competency evaluation, and therefore one will be performed at Western State Hospital in Lakewood, Washington, a psychiatric facility. In the case of Rashad Hardy, who is accused of murdering Zoe Zuela Martinez, an omnibus hearing is scheduled for Friday, November 12th at 1 p.m. in King County Superior Court. For those of you unfamiliar or haven't covered trials like I have, an omnibus hearing is traditionally a short pretrial procedure hearing, confirming that the prosecutors have given the defense all the information that they need to build their case. This includes evidence seized at the time of arrest, testimony, and evidence gleaned from the investigative process. So it's usually pretty short, pretty straightforward. I did have a couple of announcements as well, just because I know it was a heavy topic tonight. And so I thought, after we shed a few tears, we'll go ahead and talk about a few positive things that are happening. Pre-orders are being taken for Insurrection, which is the latest photo book from my friend Nate Gowdy, about his coverage of the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. And basically, I conducted an interview of him that he's included at the end of his book. It's 140 pages. It's just amazing. It'll blow your mind. Obviously, I had a chance to look at it already, and I just have to say I was truly amazed. It's a book that I'm glad to add to my collection. It is $60, but basically it's clearly going to sell out. So if you haven't yet, go ahead and pick that up. I'm going to share the information about all of these on my Facebook page. Actually, I already have. And then I'll add these to my link tree tomorrow. Then on Friday, November 12th, I'll be speaking to a group in Tacoma run by Diversity Alliance, Puget Sound, from 7 to 9 p.m. That will also be available via Zoom, and I'll add the link to that. Burfos included the Nate Gowdy's website. Then on Saturday, November 13th, I'll be speaking, one of many speakers, honestly, who will be speaking about my good friend George Bacon. He was the publisher of the Seattle Gay News. I was the former managing editor of the paper, so we were very close. And there will be a memorial service held to remember him and his contributions to the LGBTQIA community here in Seattle. It's going to be at All Pilgrims Church on Broadway in the Capitol Hill neighborhood at 2 p.m. And like I said, all of this will be on my link tree, which is down below. And that's tomorrow because I have to get some sleep. That's really it. I have some time for some questions if anyone has any. I know it's been a long week so far, at least for me. I only got like 4 hours of sleep the last couple of days because I had to do a double my day job. And thank you, Barfos. He's put the link to my link tree in the chat. Any questions before we go? So again, I'm really honored that you all joined me today for this special tribute to Rikkey Outumuro, also known as Tru Starlet. Like I said, I attended her vigil on Sunday, which is where I got this. It is from a group, Hope Alliance, a 24/7 advocacy hotline in Lewis County for people experiencing domestic violence. If you happen to be someone who needs some help reach out at 1-800-244-7414. Okay. Looks like we have no comments tonight. Okay, so I'm just going to show you their photos one more time to remind you that these are actually people who were murdered brutally. Rikkey was murdered in her home. She was 39 years old. Zoe Martinez was murdered, shot 5 times in a car, and her body was dumped in Seattle in an alleyway. And this violence has got to stop. And those that are contributing to this violence need to be held accountable. So again, this is Rikkey Outumuro, Tru Starlet. And Zoe Martinez. Both were shot 5 times. These are 2 individuals who are trans or non-binary who were murdered here in Washington State. They're one of 5 folks, trans or non-binary folks, murdered here in the Pacific Northwest or who died of violent means. So hold your loved ones close tonight and make sure to, be an ally to those who are trans or non-binary. It's a difficult path, I can assure you. But people deserve to live their lives and to, be loved and respected. Having said all that, I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. Oh, we have one more comment. Like I said, if you're experiencing domestic violence, Hope Alliance is here to help. Borfos put their web address on the screen. So this has been Renee Reports. Until next time, good night. Oh, and I want to say one more thank you to my mods, Borfos, Juniper System, and K Variable dropped in. Thank you so much, all of you, for your help with this program. If anyone is interested in a produced program such as this, reach out to me. I will need sponsors, and I'll need more mods, and I'll need more support. So if you have time, please reach out. My contact information is down below. Again, have a good night. I always forget to hit that.